making money is something that we all do, but it's something that people see as a dirty activity, a bad activity. But again, at the end of the day, we all do it. We all do it in different ways. Some of us work in shops, some of us work in offices, some of us work from home, and some of us work for ourselves. But why do we view making a lot of money as a bad thing? There's a few reasons for this. It could boil down to inequality or simply put a lack of understanding. I hear it all the time from people who are just not in the know that you have to do something unethical to amass a lot of money. And in my experience, that's not been the truth at all. I've not amassed an amazing amount, I'm not a millionaire or anything, but I have to say that for my age group, I am certainly ahead. Not by an amazing amount, but again, I kind of understand the concept and I'm on the road a lot more than most people are. And I don't say that to, sort of say I'm amazing or anything. It's just a fact. And to make this money, I haven't done anything that I see as unethical at all. Again, like I said before, the things that I've had to do to run these businesses include starting up YouTube channels like this one, which in my opinion is nothing but a positive experience, sharing my ideas and my opinions and my what I've seen through my eyes with other people. Then we can talk about my eBay selling shop, which has also been a great stream of income. All I've had to do is sell stuff on there. Now you could argue that you had to mark the item up, so technically that's unethical, but let's be honest, every shop does that. And if the idea of trading things is unethical, then I guess a capitalist society is not something that you agree with. But I think you understand what I'm saying here. And my eBay shop, by the way, was making me at one point, thousands of pounds a month in profit, more than what most people's jobs do. And what I'm saying here is, none of these have been unethical. None of these have been uneasy for me morally or anything like that. And that's not because I'm some sort of a psychopath. It's obvious common sense. A business can help people. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people who make a lot of money do it in purely unethical ways. I think this is where people get confused. I think this is what people have been told for such a long time. The idea of making a lot of money must be unethical, but it could not be further from the truth. I can think of multiple ideas which are beneficial both to the individual but also to individuals other. So again, you enrich yourself financially whilst also helping other people, and don't do this in an unethical way. It's very easy, but that's the experience, right? That's the fact. We understand now when we rationalize it that making money is not necessarily an evil activity. But let's get to the bottom of this and change our mindset fully, because the question is, a big question, why is it perceived as an evil or a bad activity in the first place? And that is a really interesting question which probably requires a lot more thought. I think it goes back to the understanding of how most people make their money, because when we think about that on a deep level, it kind of all makes sense. Most people, especially in the UK for example, might make £100 a day. That's a fair wage. Some might make 150, some might make 200 on the absolute upper end. Some make more, of course, but let's say the average person makes between, we're going to say part-time £50 a day, full-time top £200 a day, something like that. So with most people being in this bracket, they understand one thing. Let's say I'm a cleaner, which is a very good job. We need cleaners in our society. But let's say I'm a cleaner and I make £100 a day by working 10 hours for £10 a day, £10 an hour. Let's say that I do that job. When we think about this, it seems like whoever's making £300, £400, £500 must be doing something unethical, because it's impossible for me as a cleaner doing an actual productive job to make that much money in a single day. But here's the thing, right? It's not necessarily about the fact that this worker is unethical. It's about this worker is different. This worker's operating in a completely different field. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've shown it before. Stuff like trading on the stock market, you can easily make thousands of pounds in minutes if you have enough startup capital and know what you're doing. That's my point though, it's different tiers. We need to change our mindset towards work to understand that making a lot of money isn't evil. What we first need to understand though is, for most people, selling your time for money won't work, because most people have limited time. Again, go back to the cleaner analogy and you understand it perfectly. It doesn't matter how much I clean. It doesn't matter what I do. If I get paid £10 an hour, I get paid that. And even if I was to work every hour of the day and night, that means that I'm working 24 hours a day. I still only make £240 a day on £10 an hour. It's just a point that I'm trying to amplify here. Most people sell their time for money, but because of that, there is a limit on what you can do. What I think is a much better idea is selling your expertise or your skills or making your money work for you. So again, we can talk about my examples of that in my experience, because I am somebody who, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just saying I want to practice what I preach. So when it comes to selling my skills and that kind of stuff, I've done that on YouTube, again, in my former channels where I've documented my progress and that kind of stuff. And in terms of eBay, I guess I'm sort of selling my experience and expertise at hooking people up with the best items for the best prices that I can. That's the way that I see it, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's not at all anything like, working in a shop and having to stand there for a certain amount of hours. I can work on my eBay shop for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and make, maybe a few £100s. For most people, that's not something that they can do, but it's because we work in different ways. And that's why I talk on this channel so much about why starting a business is such a great thing to do. You can just make much more, and again, that's what we need to separate between the idea of making money and bad. It's not bad, it's just working in a different way. Somebody doesn't necessarily have to be exploited for you to make a lot of money. Somebody doesn't necessarily have to be robbed or ripped off or anything like that. That's not how it works. You just need to work in a more efficient way that makes more capital in a shorter period of time. It's about thinking outside of the box. And when we separate these two ideas and then kind of jumble it back together, you now see where I'm coming from. It's not necessarily that the person who makes more is evil. It's just that they work in a different way. Especially if people run their own businesses, that's just a fact of it, and that's honestly completely fine. But we need to understand that to differentiate between evil and making more money in an efficient manner. There is definitely a difference between the two, if you ask me. So with that being said, how do we get ourselves in a position where we make more money or can make more money? Again, the first thing that we need to understand, like I just said, is the separation between how making money works for different types of people. When we sell what we know, when we sell what we do and our experience and our money and that kind of stuff, we get ourselves in a better financial position because we can make more. We're not limited by the constraints of time. And going back to the whole point of seeing money as an evil thing, unfortunately, and it is kind of unfortunate, money is what we use to operate on nowadays. It's not always been the case, but there's always been something, whether it's money in the form of, paper banknotes or plastic banknotes, or whether it's money in the form of gold coins that have been used in ancient civilizations, or cows or wheat or anything like that. Commodities of a sort have always been sold. And there's nothing explicitly wrong with that. That's just a way that we get by, right? Because nobody wants to have something for nothing. Nobody wants to give away something for nothing, and that's fine. We're all trying to make an existence here. But if we want to live in a capitalist society that we're in, and if people genuinely want to do that, and if people are comfortable with doing that, we need to understand that, unfortunately, and it is quite unfortunate, that capitalism is a game that works best for the efficient. And I'm not saying that's right. I honestly don't think it's fair, because not everybody gets the education to understand how money works. But for those who do, it's not even about being evil. It's just about seeing things that other people don't. That's why CEOs of companies get paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions. It's like this person's making, 50 or even 100 times more than what the employee in the shelf does. But when we talk about a whole company level, this is actually a good investment, because this CEO is going to turn the company round and make it way more efficient and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, that is what the capitalist society values. And again, it's one of those mindsets of, yes, we can move to a different country or operate in different ways, or just stop caring about materialistic goods. But if we want to embrace and use capitalism to our advantage to get rich, we need to understand how it works. And again, that boils down to being the most efficient. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be evil. It just means that you have to work in a way that brings in the most capital with the least amount of physical output. And again, in the 2020s, I should say, and going forwards into the 2030s, we have a brilliant and golden opportunity to do this with a form of AI making workloads even more efficient, with the internet connecting people with better suppliers, more sellers, more buyers, all this sort of stuff. We have the opportunity, and this is why so many people have made millionaires out of themselves and their students and their friends and all that kind of stuff, because we live in a time now where it's much easier. It's because people are working more efficient because of what we have, but unfortunately some people are not tuned into the way that things work nowadays. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything, I'm just saying, for those looking to make more, it's not about becoming evil or anything like that, or becoming unethical or bad or something like that. I said at the beginning of this video, tying it all together, you can do this running a small shop if you wanted to and make more than the average person. You could be an artist. Artists don't harm anybody. Just imagine you're a famous artist and all you do is paint all day. It's really fun. People love to see your art, and then somebody buys an art piece from you every year for £1 million. I'm not saying this is a realistic example, but I'm just saying that person is getting rich and they're making an awful lot of money, £1 million a year minimum. But they're not doing anything wrong. It's not unethical. Somebody's choosing to buy it. They're not extorting anybody for the money. It's a choice of somebody to buy it, and that's my point. So once we separate it and understand how it works, we can better use the system to make ourselves more financially free. But again, we need to separate the two things, time and money and evil. They don't all need to connect together. That's the important thing to remember. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found some use out of it. I want you guys to tell me in the comment section if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong. It's just my opinion, of course, and this is just the way I see things and how I've experienced it. But if you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear it in the comment section. So thank you so much for watching this one up until this point. And again, I do hope to see you in our next one. So see you soon. Goodbye.